Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to this episode of the Public Safety Drone Review. Thank you all so much for being here. We appreciate you all a lot. We're just going to give people one more minute to get into the room and then we'll get started. Always fun to see the numbers go up in the beginning. Here we go. Throughout, if you have questions, put them into the chat or the Q&A. We will try as we can.
Let me change that. If you have questions, please put them in the Q&A because it's hard to keep up with the chat that keeps going by when everybody's saying hello. And then I'm trying to go back through and find where the question was. If you go in the Q&As, they stay in the Q&As and we can answer them more effectively.
All right. Fair enough. You're right.
And let me put in our, let's see.
Okay, so excited. We have 89 people so far. That is great. Good to have you all. Thank you so much. 94. Okay, numbers are going up. So I am Miriam McNabb, co-host of the Public Safety Drone Review. I'm Miriam McNabb, editor at Drone Life. With me today, as always, Charles Warner, king of drone responders. Tim Martin. Tim has lost his voice, so he is with us in spirit and by chat answering questions. And our guest today, we are so honored to have with us Gabriel Graveline of Tulsa, Oklahoma Fire Department and Jason Burnside of the Austin, Texas Fire Department. It is wonderful to have people, boots on the ground, take time out of your day to be with us. We appreciate you so much. Thank you so much for being here. And Gabe, next time we're getting your beautiful wife, who is also an EMT and a first responder, on with you. We're going to have like the Graveline, Punch and Judy show going on here. So
the duo?
You tell her she's she's up next. Okay. So let me do just a little bit. As I mentioned, please put questions in the Q&A. Feel free to make comments on the chat. We'll get to as many of those as we can, as we're able to. We have a lot to discuss in kind of the current events news portion of the show, and then we will open it up for people to be able to ask questions of Gabe and Jason, who are both using drones. They are both program managers in their respective departments. If you missed something or you want to go back, this will be posted on the Drone Life YouTube station, which is Drone Life TV. Take a look for our logo, and you can find the recording there afterwards. As always, our guests are not sponsored. We do not ask for payment from our guests. That way we can have actual boots on the ground, people that we think are most valuable to our audience. However, if you ever want to sponsor a program, this is when we'd be talking about your product and you would reach all of these great people. All right, let's get started. Charles, big stuff happening this week. Today is October 7th. That means it is one day past the deadline for the BVLOS NPRM comment period. Comments have now closed on the BVLOS NPRM. We are also in day 7, I think, of a government shutdown, which means we have a few fewer people at the FAA around to push through regulations. Let's talk about both of those things. So get us started on the conversation about BVLOS comments.
Yeah, so first, to all of you that did submit comments, thank you for submitting the comments. 11:59 p.m. last night was the deadline for comments to be in. I think when I checked this morning, there were 2.68 thousand comments shown on the FAA docket compared to over 53,000 comments for remote ID. Which is a good thing. I think 53,000 comments for this BVLOS rule would have been quite overwhelming. Um, what's interesting is, now we've had the government shutdown. And I reached out to John Meehan and said, hey, John, I've called the administrator and said, you need to get John Meehan back to work because we need these waivers done. And I called him up and he said, you did what? You did what? I said, okay, just a little firehouse humor. No, I didn't do that, John. He said, look, because I'm like looking for 2 weeks off to get this stuff done at home here. And, don't be calling anybody on my behalf. But all things being said, he said he missed being here with everybody helping out. So, yeah, now what effect is it going to have with the government shutdown with the rule? Because there's going to be a whole bunch of other stuff piled on. In addition to this, I mean, we've got air traffic controllers now that are not staffing places in different places around the country. And God help you if you're traveling.
Well, we will see what happens, but let's talk a little bit. If you could frame it, and then I'd like to get Gabe and Jason into the conversation to talk about their thoughts on this. Frame the BVLOS rule as it stands now, what that would mean for current operations, and let's kind of talk about that. Because right now, what I'm hearing from first responders is that the rule doesn't necessarily mirror what they can already do with their waivers.
I think that what we found in the rule draft that came out is that it was based on large fleets, total automation, lots of onerous restrictions of flying over populations, permits, training requirements, personnel requirements, and essentially removed Part 107 from any BVLOS waivers anymore. So essentially what that meant was if it stayed as it is in its current form, almost all of our DFR programs and all of our tactical beyond visual line of sight operations would cease to exist. And that would not only affect public safety, but it would also affect all the small operators out there that are doing these things already. And I did hear from some of the discussions that when people were told, you realize that what you have in the rule will not allow us to do what we're doing now safely, and we've been doing for several years, they went, what? It is? So a little bit frustrating, as I mentioned before to you, Miriam, as I was on the BVLOS ARC, and a lot of things in the BVLOS ARC report are not addressed in this whatsoever, which is kind of frustrating because if we're going to really truly be effective going forward, we're going to have really good conspicuity in the airspace. I know that's one of Abby Smith's big pushes is that there needs to be that conspicuity so that we can see everything that's out there and be able to then avoid it. But that didn't come in the draft rule. So now we have to hope and pray that these comments that go in will be met with something. I will tell you that I got somebody who reached out to me a little bit angry with me in the comments and said, you weren't angry enough in the comments. And I'm like, angry does not necessarily translate to success as comments of the FAA. I'm trying to be constructive, professional, demonstrate the reasons. He said, well, did you read the ones about from the balloonist and ultralight pilots? And they were angry about all this stuff. And I said, as I said, angry does not translate to success.
Right.
So that's my quick synopsis.
So one other thing, it also is the DGI issue, right?
Oh,
So
yes. Well,
DGI
yeah.
reads, just, we should mention this to our audience. A lot of you are using DGI. We have said before, you got kind of have to vary the fleet just to make sure that you protect your own operations. But according to DJI's reading of the way it is currently, they would be locked out of being certified for BVLOS operations. So that's also an important thing to
To your point, it retroactively stops you from using any of those drones for any BVLOS operation. So it won't be certified as airworthy under the new rules. So yes, you're exactly right. That would shut off all the drones. That's even worse than going on a covered list. If it goes on a covered list, you can continue using the drones until they don't work anymore. It means you can't get new ones ordered under the new under a covered list. But yeah, this would shut it off.
Yeah, so I didn't know if just wanted to make sure that we got that out there. So, gentlemen, what are your thoughts? Are you guys using BVLOS waivers? What do you use them for? Do you think that the rule would accommodate what you're currently trying to do? Who wants to-
Yeah, we're using the BV loss waiver for sure. I mean, I think back before even waivers existed, I think there's a lot of public safety entities that you know recognized very early on that for our requirements for what we're asked to do with the drones, search and rescue, large area triage or mapping and modeling and things like that. BV loss is essential. And so, having that, finally integrated into 107 was a big win. But, the 108, removing it from 107, it's going to be very onerous on a lot of agencies and strongly restrict what our capabilities will be. And, even the DJI thing, it's if that, there's plenty of DFR programs out there right now that are very successful in what they're doing, that would ground their entire fleet, and that would send them back to ground zero, figuring out where do you go from there. And I don't think that that's certainly not the answer.
Right. Gabe, your thoughts?
Oh, so many of them. Just to go, we do have a diversified fleet. So we do have Skydios with some DJIs hanging around. We have been doing DFR, the boxed units. We've started with the previous version of Skydios X2, had that for a little over a year at one of our locations. We did just do a trial with the X10. So we do have beyond visual line of sight. Waivers, I've been trying to stay calm and just wait things out to see kind of what they settle on. But yeah, it could definitely. So right now we don't have dedicated folks to robotics or drones. It's kind of like we have another job title, and if it looks like the way they're spelling it out in the 108, like it would administratively, and to do it right and to make sure it's continuously operating. I think it would take quite a bit of manpower. So that's concerning, just because I know, at least for our service for the fire department, drones we've been using for 10 years, but it's never been something that's really been had a budget or manpower placed behind stuff like that. It's just now kind of really gaining the traction, and they're starting to see the value of them, especially in the DFR realm, using them beyond visual line of sight. So yeah, definitely concerning. Definitely something that we're keeping a very close eye on. And like I say, we're right in the middle of it right now. So I also try to look at it from the manned pilot side. I'm a manned pilot, and so I see some of the comments put from some of the associations like AOPA, stuff like that, where those pilots don't want to be burdened by a lot of it. Also, they want to put it back on the remote pilots. So there's a lot of back and forth. It's very interesting.
Yeah. Okay. Well, you mentioned you have a mixed fleet. We could spend our whole hour, frankly, talking about about the BVLOS thing, but let's see what our next steps are, and I'm sure we will be speaking about it on many future episodes.
Great. Let me address one thing in the chat. It says, I've been convinced for years, no matter whose administration is in charge, the end of game SUAS regulation will be cleared skies for Amazon. I just want to say we've had some really good luck of talking with Amazon, Zipline, and Wing about maybe using a tax server to create a way for us to enter into that conversation and connect with these delivery companies to create prioritization for us. So we are having some good conversations on that. So stay tuned on that. We do have conversations going. So maybe we can circumvent some of that.
Yeah. Right. I do think that the people, and you're not wrong, right? This regulation was certainly geared towards drone delivery, but I do think that the people at the top of the drone delivery chain are committed to working with first responders. They don't take the attitude of just get out of our way. So
Also don't want bad press.
right. Right.
Yeah.
All right, so let's go on to the next story here, which is, who was at Skydio Ascend? Anybody? Anybody? Okay. Gabe, you were there. Charles, you were viewing.
I watched.
You watched. Tim, I know you were also present. So Skydio made some really interesting announcements at Skydio Ascend. So those are actually worth discussing because it was a pretty big potential change in capabilities. So again, Gabe, what impressed you the most, or should we outline like what that change is that we're talking about here? There were a couple of new products released, but also they introduced the fact that their products can be on one platform for multiple drones operated by a single operator. So this is what we call M2N operations. To some extent, it's the holy grail when you talk about industrial applications, because if you're doing something, you know, on a mining site or something, you not only want to be remote, you want one guy to be operating, you know, multiple remote sites from a single audience. So now, this is kind of the first time we've seen the software stack, the vertical stack provider say, we are offering this capability on our software platform. So that's the big change. Also, indoor drone and robotic arm launched drone, kind of fixed wing thing. Gabe, what impressed you the most?
Um, so I was impressed by the robotic arm, obviously, like everybody was, the fixed wing. The R10, I actually got to fly it around for a little bit, do some interior operations with it. It was impressive as well. I did like you said, that the way they structured their DFR platform. We actually, like I said, just finished up a trial with it, and so we had flown the X10, just patrol led, I guess we'll call it. But using it in a DFR, the way I really feel like Skydio upped their game in that. So I can see how the 4-to-1 came to be. Now you're getting a better return on your investment of each pilot being able to control, you know, multiple platforms and or multiple docks. So I was impressed really in the software upgrades that they've done on the back end on that DFR platform. But the possibility of having a aircraft that can, with longer endurance and persistent surveillance, I think would be fantastic. That can loiter longer at a scene is definitely appealing to us. It's something that we've looked at in other platforms. And we will continue to look. Obviously, we're going to use whatever is best for each mission. Something that we've had a gap in is we've used like the Avadas for our crisis response teams. That's actually my main mission is I'm on a crisis response team. So we end up going on a lot of suicidal subjects, barricaded. And so having something that we can use that already integrates with the X10s and that whole platform is also appealing. And again, it'll take some time out in the field to find what the caveats are for that platform and start working them in. So it was a good overall show. I thought I was impressed.
Somebody puts in a comment, Skydio also demoed the drone control transfer between multiple pilots and at different locations. So in addition to M2N operations, just a lot more flexibility with how you work with your program and you exchange aircraft, right?
Yeah, and that's part of that software and DFR command. It's being able to commandeer the aircraft or pass it off to somebody else is really a cool deal.
I think Oklahoma City did some of the original stuff to where they call it patrol-led DFR. Was kind of a first start. Is an officer gets on the scene, launches it from a trunk, and then the remote pilot picks it up and takes it from there and flies it. Which means now you've got somebody watching over it. The person is the officer, especially if they're by themselves. So that's kind of an exciting feature. So it's basically you can launch from anywhere.
So Chief, you and I talked right after the show. You were really impressed with the potentialities that were represented. What do you think? What was the thing that you think is most meaningful about those changes?
The thing that was meaningful to me was showing their flaws and saying, here's the things we've got problems with, and here's our problem resolution that we're working through to get there. So I thought that was good. Put it out there, own it, and tell how you're working on fixing it. As Gabe mentioned, I think that the whole multiple aircraft on a single platform is really interesting. Is that you can now fly an internal drone, an overwatch drone, a higher loitering drone, at the same time to give you different viewpoints from one remote pilot. That's pretty amazing. That's a whole game changer in concept of going forward. And I have to say, you know, Skydio usually always does a great show every year. The question now is how does it all play out in performance and those kind of things, and that's what we'll have to see is how that plays out. And the robotic arm, well, it was kind of cool. They took off and landed back to the arm. That's takes a little bit of some engineering. So we'll
This
see.
is
I'm
a
excited to see what
robotic
happens.
arm which attaches to a vehicle and can launch, launch a longer duration drone,
Yeah.
which is that drone is still in development, correct?
Yes.
Yes.
I believe so.
But can it take off from the arm and then the vehicle drive and land while it's driving? That's what I want to see next.
Jason can. I've seen Jason do it.
Yeah, it's really no big
Arm
deal.
out the window.
I'll just get with their engineers.
Jason, what are your thoughts?
I was impressed. You know, I am always pleased to see when you know, if the writing's on the wall where we're going to you know, have fewer options to choose from as public safety. I was glad to see that we now have solutions or potential future solutions to you know, some of the equipment that we were otherwise going to lose, like the DJI Avata. You know, we do have a number of those in our fleet, also for confined space, you know, rescue and things along those lines, looking under canopy for victims. And to see that now it looks like we will start to have, you know, a solution for that, an alternative, is really kind of heartening. You know, I've always thought that, you know, I think the drone dock and the DFR, you know, is the way of the future for a lot of agencies. But, you know, being, I guess, inhibited by that small amount of flight time, you know, between the time that the drone launches, it only has a limited, you know, on scene time, and then it's got to return. Seeing that they are working on that solution with the fixed wing, I think was impressive to see. And I think you know, Chief Warner mentioned it, that just the company's finally addressing the transparency. You know, I think we've all heard, you know, secondhand you know, accounts of issues, and for them to acknowledge it and to say that they were going to work on transparency and you know, putting that out to the public, I think that's a great next step.
All right, so some of our stories in our list are the Las Vegas, what they're calling their Blue Sky program. So this relates to the Skydio announcements. So Chief, you are more, you're on the in with what they have a new waiver. So talk about how this ties in and the new waiver in Vegas.
Well, I think it plays into the combined aircraft on a platform. You can't fly multiple aircraft on a platform right now under your waiver as it was in the past. But what Las Vegas did is they got the 4-to-1, so they could actually fly all those aircraft on that single platform at an incident scene. So that's the big change. One thing that I did find is that their certificate of waiver initially was for Class G airspace, and they got it under Part 107. However, I don't think any of Las Vegas's airspace is Class G airspace. So what they have to do now is go for wide area airspace authorization separately through Drone Zone, which we're trying to fix. We're trying to get all this stuff into one place where, like now in the certificate of waiver, when you get it, you get authorized airspace automatically under Part 91, but you don't get under Part 107. And it's like, FAA, why can't we do the same thing for both of them? It's the same operation. It's the same airspace authorization. So we're working on it, and we will get there.
So we should definitely mention here that while the Skydio announcement made it clear that technically you are able to do this, you still don't have permission to do this unless you have a waiver from the FAA. So that's always problematic, but we will we will see how it goes, and we'll see how Las Vegas, you know, their operations work out. So the second story that we had on Las Vegas was again in reference to this announcement that they made. They did all the right things, made a public announcement, got up in front of everybody, explained exactly what they were doing. Everything that we talk about every single month on this show about, you know, transparency and communication and getting out there into the community. And of course, like immediately they had people from the ACLU saying, absolutely not. This is going to be used completely inappropriately. And you know, I didn't really see anything in the article that the ACLU spokesperson said that I thought could be actually problematic. Honestly, I thought it was all kind of based on a lack of information, but I did think that the message was worth reiterating once again. Unfortunately, what the guy said very clearly is he said, other people may be willing to give law enforcement the benefit of the doubt, but I'm not. And I think that that is the sad state of affairs, is that we have to keep reiterating the message of this is exactly what we are doing. You know, law enforcement and fire, some of the most highly regulated areas in the United States. They are already subject to many, many regulations, rules, regulations designed to protect people, designed to protect privacy, on and on. All of those still apply. So I think we just have to keep putting the message out.
I think that what's important is to reinforce transparency. What does the program do? What does it not do? We're not doing random surveillance. That if you see it flying, it's on a mission to protect the community. That, you know, in Virginia, we're dealing with some of that issues as well, because we're trying to change some legislation at the state level to allow DFR, but we're putting guardrails, some very specific guardrails, and we're following the guidance as much as we can of ACLU. But what we've seen is no matter how far we go to try to get and cover those things they're recommending, they're not going to accept DFR, period. And we got, you know, units are put in service 25% of the time, not having to get on the scene, which I calculated one place, over 6,000 hours of officer time was put back into the service to community. It's become one of the biggest de-escalators. Montgomery County was the first department that actually got a stabbing conviction from the video of the DFR alone, because the witnesses who were watching were afraid to be witnesses for fear of retribution. So all these things, when you look at community safety, you just got to keep the message out there. Tell your success stories.
Yep.
Yeah, echo on that. If you are, as an agency, are not controlling the narrative or attempting to steer the narrative, you know, with fact-based information and you know, the laws and the rules that are already in place, then, you know, naturally, you know, the narrative will be controlled for you. The other thing, you know, with even during 2020, when we were during civil unrest, we actually invited the members of ACLU and other organizations out to our flight line, where they could see our operations and exactly what we were looking at, you know, how we were maintaining situational awareness, you know, working to ensure that everyone on the ground on all sides had the ability to safely be there and you know, exercise their rights to be there, and get home safely. And I think when you, especially if you have a newer program and you are developing that program, or even if you have a developed program but you're looking to transition to something more advanced, you know, having members of the community, maybe even, you know, creating some kind of task force that, you know, have multiple different players, you know, who have different interests in mind, get them together around the table, hear out those concerns, and show them how either you're already answering those concerns, or that you are willing to take the steps necessary to alleviate those. So I think you know, getting the community involved is essential. And the other thing, last thing I'll point out on this topic is, you know, we're doing Austin City Limits Music Festival, And one of the things that we do when we are doing public safety UAS with the Central Texas, public safety UAS programs, we're flying with 3 or 4 different agencies at once, but we set our flight line up at a very accessible area to the public. So as they're going by, we get a lot of folks that just stop by and ask what we're doing. And we have an opportunity to do a show and tell and let them see the screens, and that transparency also demonstrates to them that we have nothing to hide. We're here to help, and we're, we have a, drones for good kind of.
Yep. All right, so we have a couple more big stories to discuss. Sorry, my little guest here. I'm responsible for the dog this week. So a couple of big stories that I wanted to make sure that we hit on. We will move through these so that we can get to some questions with our guests. But one of them is the TFR over Chicago. So this is a sort of a interesting thing. I'm not sure that we've had other precedents. It does exempt police, but there are no commercial drones allowed to fly over Chicago for a period of time while they do immigration activities. So.
Yeah, that's big. There are ways that some agencies can fly. There are things like even the media can potentially fly in the area if they get an SGI to do so. But everybody else commercially is essentially grounded.
Yeah, tough on small operators, not so much a good demonstration of us all sort of coexisting and prioritizing and so forth in the airspace. So a little bit of an interesting development.
And the article kind of says, in a lot of these places they have the TFRs, but then they end at an operational period, and then they open up again when they have that kind of stuff, and that's not what they're doing.
Right.
And I guess it also may play in that they're doing operations off and on at different times of the day that we don't know about. So that may play into why they're doing it that way.
Yeah. Interesting. I just want to do a quick shout out because I can see them here on the attendee list. Hello to Osvaldo and my friends from Puerto Rico. I met them at the commercial UAV. It is so much fun to meet people who watch this program when I'm out on the road. So nice to see.
Bienvenidos.
Yes, I'm desperately trying to get invited to Puerto Rico. All right. So our last story is there is a lot going on in Europe right now, but it's very similar to what went on, say, in New York and New Jersey, and but it's a little bit at a higher level now. So what we're seeing is that there are reported sightings of drones. And the reason I did air quotes there is because now they're sort of, some of the government agencies are backing off. Was it really a drone? We're not exactly sure. But there were some airport closures in, for example, Copenhagen and in Munich. And the result of those closures, because legitimate fears here, right? The Ukraine-Russia war is ongoing, and European countries are afraid that Russian drones are flying into their airspace. But the result of that has been 2 different things. So in Munich, for example, they called for they wanted all police to be able to shoot down drones. I don't know. I mean, I've heard of maybe 2 examples of somebody actually being able to hit a drone with a bullet and bring it down where they thought it was going to come down, but that's not the best way to do things, and it's dangerous. I mean, that's just such a bad idea on so many different fronts. But additionally, they closed the airspace for some time, which is really damaging to the industry as a whole, right? Because if you don't have any commercial flights whatsoever, this is really damaging to the industry. In Finland, they took the approach of saying, if you see a drone, it's like when you're in the airport and it says, if you see something, say something, right? Or you're on public transportation. So that was sort of, if you see a drone, report it. And I gotta say, the the author of a guest post on Drone Life, Stephen Sutton, who runs the Flyby Guys out of Finland, he was very intelligent about it and he discussed it, but there are a lot of problems with, if you see a drone, it's a problem, call the police. Not least of which is that nobody in the police has time to deal with every single, drone report that they see. And it's very damaging to everybody's programs. So I just wanted to spend a little bit of time talking about this. This also reiterates the importance of counter UAS, which also expired with the government shutdown. All right, go for it. Who wants to start?
Well, I mean, I was actually just on a call earlier today. So I'm a member of the City of Austin's Advanced Air Mobility Committee, and one of the questions that we are wrangling with is, how do we implement, counter UAS? I think we all acknowledge that if you're going to have a UAS program as part of your city, the other side of that coin is the counter side, or UAS detection, I guess is the better way to put it, so that we have awareness of what is sharing the airspace with us. Because many times, even if we are operating on an emergent scene, we still have to, potentially share that airspace, whether it's with, the media, with, a guy, 2 blocks down that wants to see what the commotion's all about, and although, they should be keeping their distance, a lot of people, we always joke that there's, typically 3 types of pilots. It's clueless, careless, or criminal. I think a lot of them fall into the clueless or careless, area, but the need to identify with drone detection is becoming more and more, I think, apparent to everybody. We have some limited drone detection here in Austin, and so we had the ability to, see what is truly kind of disturbing with some folks that will take their drone up to 1,500 feet right at the approach path of Austin Bergstrom. We see a lot of kind of carelessness going on in and around the airport. And, talking with Austin Tracon, they fully admit that the FAA does not have the resources right now to provide every major airport with that kind of detection. And so we're trying to figure out as a city, how do we assist with that? Not only for ABIA's, Austin's awareness level to make sure that passenger aircraft are safe, but at the same time, having that awareness for all public safety UAS operations within the city.
Yeah, I think that's what we're seeing is that you really need to have airspace or air domain awareness, whichever you want to call it, to really understand what activity is occurring in the airspace. And 99% of that's out there you can handle. You can use by education and awareness of saying, please put the drone down. When it gets into the criminal, then we have the issue that they may or may not be flying with the ability to jam. They can be flying self-autonomous, that it's on a suicide mission and it's going to fly, and there's not much you can do unless you use some kind of kinetic energy or some other type of force to do it. So when you look at counter UAS, first of all, there is no one right now, that has the ability in the United States to mitigate drones flying in the air. Even the federal agencies that used to have it, when the furlough went through, that did not extend those emerging technologies or whatever it's called, the emerging threat capabilities. So now no one has it. But even when it's in effect, there's only 5 federal agencies that have the authority to actually do mitigation and take down an aircraft. However, Louisiana just passed a law saying that they could actually take down drones by their state law. All I can tell you is that if you're looking at this or you're thinking about this as a state, just remember it's a federal regulation. And if you take the drone down and something bad happens, the lawyers are going to come running because you don't have sovereign immunity from federal law or federal regulations. So just be careful.
Gabe, did you want to add to that?
No, when he first said the ability, I was like, I think they have the ability, they just don't have the authority.
That's
And
right.
you corrected yourself.
Exactly.
So,
Yeah.
no, just to piggyback off of what Jason said. So we kind of have the same kind of deal. When we set up our DFR and deconfliction, we wanted to double that for, we'll call it counter UAS or detection. So we have a common operating picture that has sensors across the city showing us same kind of deal. What are we dealing with? Clueless, careless, criminal, and we share that with our law enforcement agencies, obviously, and try and get a better idea of what's going on in our airspace. But yes, like Charles says, there's not much we can do about it, but at least we can be aware of it.
Well, and at the major events, the FBI and the others that are there for that purpose are handling most of these. I mean, every one of these by finding the pilot, getting the aircraft down, and then dealing with that particular issue. Yeah.
But I
And
think we need to really start pushing, not just because, as someone pointed out, yes, air domain awareness. Thank you for that. But we need to get the equipment. You're allowed to see what's you're allowed to detect, right? You're just not allowed to mitigate. And detection is actually a huge portion of the problem. So we really need to get that equipment into the hands of.
Well, actually, some of the authorities aren't there to get the advanced detection that we need to go a little bit further so that we're not doing the wiretapping or any of that kind of stuff. So there's not any ambiguity. But to your point, the equipment detection is needed so much to be able to understand. If you're not looking at this and doing this, you need to get something out there to understand what's happening in the airspace. I will tell you that there is $500 million in the coffers to be granted out to local state SLTTs for its counter UAS equipment, but it's basically right now the only thing you can buy is detection.
Well, and if you have a public safety drone program, and you're not exploring the detection side of things, that is just one more avenue that for program justification. The other thing is if you have larger events in your city and you have not been able to in the past receive a TFR, starting that drone detection and getting the data to justify, why you have a request for that. And granted, we all know that, just because the TFR is there does not prevent people from launching, but it's at least, we're trying to do our due diligence to keep the public safe.
I think the other thing too is Ryan Wallace with Embry-Riddle has done some work to show what they're finding. And it's suddenly, if you look at this, you're seeing sometimes that drones are in the orbit of a medical helicopter coming in to an approach of a medical center and those kind of things. And knowing that to prevent some potential serious problems is important.
Okay, so let's we are late. We only have the last 20 minutes to do this, but if we could, let's ask both of you to give like a very short kind of what are you using drones for? How do you execute your programs? And that can kind of open it up for discussion and for questions from the audience. Like I said, we always are so grateful when people who are actually, boots on the ground take the time to be here. So, all right, Gabe, you're still muted, and Jason, you're not. So Jason, you have to go first.
Okay, no worries. So our program started in 2014 with the intent of just finding emerging technologies and seeing how they integrate into the fire service. From that, we have grown over the years to with use of, we have a couple of Emily boats, but our principal mission is aviation and drones. We have, I believe right now, 46 aircraft, 21 pilots. And so our principal focus right now is we try and be as varied as possible. We do not silo or pigeonhole ourselves into just the fire game, but we do focus, on our principal mission, which would be, everything from structure fires, wildfires, search and rescue missions, hazmat, any kind of technical rescue, whether it's a swiftwater rescue, large scale natural disasters. Where we're looking at least the initial, where we're attempting to locate victims, and then we will transition into infrastructure inspections, getting infrastructure repaired and back online. We use our drones with other city agencies, provide them with mapping and modeling, for documentation. We assist with law enforcement, quite a bit. And we've been exploring everything from, like I mentioned earlier, using Avadas for interior search, as well as, that confined space, collapses, things along those lines. But, we're constantly trying to test the limits of what this technology is capable of. I've got a couple of mad scientists on my team that, you know, they're kind of like MacGyvers. They're, you know, they have aircraft and they're constantly testing different capabilities, lift capacity with, you know, delivering a personal flotation device, using full manual FPV drones to provide a line anchor around a tree for, you know, boat teams and things like that to navigate swift water, all sorts of things along those lines. So, I mean, and another big one, I guess, would be public safety with the special events. So we do UT football games, you know, ACL, South by Southwest, stuff at Circuit of the Americas with F1 and things along those lines. So we try and diversify and make ourselves as useful as possible.
All right, Gabe.
Everything that Jason said, but cut it in half. No, we didn't start until 2015, so about a year after them. We have half that amount of pilots. We have 11 pilots, probably about half that fleet, probably 20 something if you count up all our equipment. Same, obviously, use cases: fire department, Overwatch, you know, hazmat, rescue. Specifically, we've used the drones a lot. Like I told you, since I'm on a crisis response team, usually with a police officer and a counselor on board. We will use it for de-escalation. Instead of approaching somebody that may be in a mental health crisis, we will kind of get a picture on, you know, what we're dealing with. Is this somebody that's armed? Are they hostile towards us? Is it better to let them calm down, cycle through, try to, you know, approach them from a different standpoint, those types of things. Again, fire investigations, mapping. We work obviously very closely with our law enforcement partners and other fire departments around. Also, our USAR team we're actually upping our pilots right now. We've been doing training the last 3 days for that in preparation for deployments to, you know, hurricanes, stuff like that. Our first deployment with the drones was 2017 to Hurricane Harvey. You know, specifically doing drone stuff, working with the EPA and the Coast Guard. So we've got to do a lot of stuff with it. Obviously, it's changing every single day. So it's exciting times. It's challenging as well. And we'll see where it takes us. I'll just keep copying everything that Jason does and hope for the best.
All right, I want to answer one of the questions on the Q&A. Someone asked if the federal National Defense Authorization Act language regarding DJI does go through, would that affect previously purchased models? And I have to say, from my perspective, the answer to that is the devil's in the details, and nobody really knows what the details will be. As it is right now, we don't think so, but we really don't know the answer to that. And I think that what I am hearing from federal agencies is that they expect that there will be sort of a grandfather clause and some sort of gradual work. But unfortunately, I can't give you a clear answer to that. Our second question, if anybody knows of one, I do not know this. Somebody asked if public safety agencies have been asked to review or develop drone show requirements. If anybody in the audience has been asked to work on that or knows anything about it, please put it in the comments and let us know, and maybe you can connect on that to help someone out.
I don't know of anybody working on drone show requirements. I think the request within a jurisdiction would be similar to fireworks requests, since it's a similar type of operation, flying over and around people. What I would suggest, if you're a community or locality, is that you put in place a policy or a procedure that says this is how you apply to do the drone show, and that you make sure that they have all the requirements that meet the FAA requirements, and that they're insured. So they have all the necessary waivers and they're insured. That's my recommendation.
Okay. So let me get to a couple of things that I know are things that people ask over and over again. And so one of them is, you know, what kind of a fleet are you using? And the other is kind of what kind of waivers and permissions and so forth have you received, did you guys have to do that yourselves? Did you have to drive that process? Did someone else do that? 2015, right? That puts you like in the very kind of early adopters phase. So we won't even ask like how you got that started, because obviously you both have sort of forward thinking administrations there. But go ahead, Jason. I think both of you mentioned you have mixed fleets, correct? Or
Yes, yeah. Well, ours was mixed, but it was from different manufacturers, but all of which were Chinese. We had Autel and DJI. We have since principally kind of focused our efforts on DJI aircraft, just due to the technological advancements, the affordability, and things along those lines, reliability. So yeah, we've kind of, and I was also finding too that our pilots were much more like when you're in one ecosystem, it's kind of easy for your pilots to see different aircraft, but see the similarities, and it's very familiar. But yeah, it's other waivers that we have sought. We have our training facility is very close to our airport, as well as we do a weekly mapping mission that actually pays the bills. We have a service agreement with Austin Water where we fly weekly mapping missions for them over a property that is right off of the airport. And so it's at 100-foot lance on the lance grid. And so we've had to obtain airspace waivers requesting it's basically an annual waiver that allows us to fly 100 feet above the grid, both at that mapping location as well as at the training academy. We have an exemption for our older aircraft that we use for a training fleet. So we have an exemption on the remote ID requirement at our training facility if the aircraft may stay on property and are used only for training. As well as our certificate of our COAs, and so those are the big ones.
so that's a lot. I mean, that's a lot, right? Obviously you're in a big city, but that's a lot. Are you responsible for doing that? Do you have a legal team who does that, or?
I wish. Yeah, no, it's all on my shoulders. So yeah, it's one of those things. I'm responsible for registration of all the aircraft, maintaining all of our pilot proficiency, and then especially all the waivers and certificate of authorizations and things like that. And I would say, from my experience, that seems to be pretty common, that a department puts it all on one person and says, "You got this, right?"
Yeah. Gabe,
So,
how about you?
Same kind of deal. I wrote our first COA. Started with the 333 exemption before there was Part 107. Again, that was because I was a manned pilot. Petitioned the FAA for the exemption. They gave me the exemption because I had prior, knowledge of manned aviation. Then did Part 107, got us a COA. I think we've had 7, 8, 9 COAs. I can't even remember. It's time to re-up it again. I've written all of them, including our waivers. It's taken a little bit of finesse back and forth, but yeah, like he says, it's been one of those things where I've just kind of done it and then asked for forgiveness. But the command staff seems to now be benefiting from it and see the value in it. So I think we're pushing forward to, like I said, build the program. As far as our fleet, I said we had a mixed fleet, Skydios, photo kites. We have old Aerion Sky Rangers, some DJIs, Autels. There's all kinds of stuff all over the place. Some of them used for training, just like Jason said. And our fire academy is in a 50-foot zone from the airport. So same kind of deal, dealing with the Class C, Class D airspaces and working out agreements with the tower to be able to operate in those areas. But yeah, it sounds very similar. I think we're probably scaled down. They're a larger city. And so just tugging right along, just pushing along.
So
Guys, I put your two contact information in the chat. So any complaints, send it to them.
He's not kidding. He actually did put your emails into the chat.
That's fine.
That's totally fine by me. Reach out.
It's okay.
And send complaints to them.
All right. What's your advice for people who, know that for what they want to do, they need to start the process of getting a waiver, a COA, a COW, whatever. Don't know where to start, don't have a legal department. Somebody said to them, you got this, right?
I would say the first and foremost is this community is vast, but at the same time, I feel like it's also very close knit. So once you just know that you have plenty of people to lean on that are eager to help you because they were where you were at one point. And so I would say, please, if my email is in the chat here, reach out to me. I'm happy to help you with that. With any kind of suggestions. I guarantee you, there's people around you that have already been doing it for a while. Don't try and reinvent the wheel. Reach out to those who have already done. And most, I've yet to meet a program manager that did not want to or freely give out, their policy and procedure and everything they've done so far. So you can skip that crawl phase and go straight to the walking phase.
Yeah, I would just add that we have a DFR working group, nationwide working group. So that's one powerful entity if you're doing DFR. Again, my email's in the chat as well. We have a resource center at Drone Responders. Membership is free. So if you're looking for information, any one of us that are here and around you are glad to look, but we also have a dashboard. So you might check the dashboard to see who might be around you as far as agencies that you can also reach out to, because if you get somebody close by, then you can also see what they're doing and take a look at it. But we're all out here to help. And one thing I would tell you, go to the Public Safety Toolkit on the FAA website, and John Meehan has put a really good flow chart, which if you're looking at DFR, which way do you want to go? Because you can go Part 107 or you can go Part 91 as a public aircraft, and that walks you through how to decide which way to go.
Okay, we only have a couple of minutes left, but there is another thing that I think comes up a lot. You guys both represent the fire station side of the business, but both of you have said that you work closely with your law enforcement side. So how were you able to coordinate that? Is it an informal thing? Is it a formal thing? Is it did you guys start that, or did somebody prior to you start that? How does that work?
On our side, since I had been doing it and they saw that we were doing it, they started calling us for mutual aid for assistance. Along the way, we helped them get some COAs. They've had various pilots. Our police department still doesn't have it's kind of different here from the rest of the country. They're not the ones leading the drone stuff. The fire department is. So they're still trying to get a team put together. They're still trying to figure out whether they want to do DFR, patrol lead, that kind of stuff. So they have a manned aviation unit, which they lean on a lot. And then we kind of fill in those gaps. What I was going to say is, as well as drone responders and, emailing Jason for advice, reach out to your suburbs or to your surrounding agencies and form a DFR working group locally, or just even a drone group. Just see what they're doing, how you can complement each other, what your capabilities are, and that's kind of how this has come together. We have monthly meetings, talk about where we're at, what we've done, and how we'd like to improve, and just keep pushing forward.
Think about a drone responder state chapter.
Or that. We need one.
This is, so I have heard so many people respond the same way, Gabe, where it's kind of like, if you build it, they will come. If you start flying and you start showing some early successes, other agencies will call you and say, hey, what could we do with this technology? But that being said, Jason.
Yeah, so we had early on, as we were kind of exploring, the technology, it was so too were the other, public safety agencies. Just like Gabe was saying, we have monthly get-togethers where we usually have an in-person lunch if we can over some queso, and have some good discussions on what everybody's up to. If we have an upcoming special event, kind of coordinating with one another the resources. One of the things that we have found is that, rarely is there one agency that has, enough pilots and enough drones and enough funding to be able to, handle, a large scale special event solo. And one of the things that we do is rely on each other to kind of divide and conquer, strengthen numbers and friendships there. So the other thing that does for you is when you do have those routine conversations, and you're practicing working together and coordinating and deconflicting and things like that, for special events that are a planned event. When you have those emergent events, you already know faces and names. We already coordinate together. It's already kind of that seamless process. We've already worked it all the kinks out during a special event. And the other thing that I would say too is, coordinate so that for the program managers out there that are in charge of your training, do not exclusively try and do it all yourself. Look at the other program managers in your area and discuss a way that you guys can kind of round robin who's responsible for the training. And that way you're constantly, training together in other areas as well, not just special events. But those are ways to get the conversations going. And one of the things that we have eventually worked out is, a dispatch protocol. So if APD, needed to give us a call, or Austin Travis County EMS, one of our sheriff's, departments, there's kind of a phone chain that we can kind of start going down that path. And we've already worked all that out on the back end. So again, when we need resources, we know who to call, and all that's already kind of been coordinated.
Also, make sure you have an airspace coordination policy that says what you're going to do, how you're going to fly, so that you don't have collisions in the airspace. And we do have a draft airspace coordination policy in our blog. If you want to use that, it's there for the use.
Well, gentlemen, it is 4:01. It is time to end the hour, but I have one more comment that I wanted to make, which is from Tim. Tim, thank you so much for being here, despite the fact that you've lost your voice. He says, for those looking to still start a program, out of the trunk of the car or patrol led is a great way to start. DFR is a good end game, but start where you can. And that's absolutely just bears repeating. So I really wanted to say that. So thank you, everybody. Thank you so much to our guests. We're really grateful for the time. Tim, somebody wants your contact information too, but you can always find Tim and Charles on Drone Responders. So thank you so much, everybody, for being here. Thank you to our guests. We will see you next month, first Tuesday of the month at 3 p.m. Eastern. And if you came in late or you want to share this with somebody else, check us out in a week or so on the Drone Life TV YouTube channel. Thanks so much, everyone. Bye-bye.
Here we go.